Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, it's all about the road.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And during a portion of the week where maybe you can catch a quick breath as you are right back at it following hoops to kick off the week. We'll have hoops to wrap up the week. And, of course, Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders are back on the field coming up on Saturday, and we will touch on all of the above on today's episode. Talk about what's at stake on the road for Tech this week. We'll get to this week's injury report, which I thought did have some interesting developments or inclusions, possibly also some interesting omissions as well. We'll get to that coming up in just a moment, but I want to start on the hardwood. Texas Tech now at a bit of a transition point within their early season schedule. You're going to step outside of your comfort zone, outside of your building for the first time as you head to Brooklyn at New York. And now with 4 ball games in the rear view, thankfully 4 wins in those opportunities. Grant McCasland, following the win on Monday night, spoke about a takeaway or some things that have stood out to him through those first 4.
I think the biggest thing is we've gotten an opportunity to get a lot of minutes for a lot of different guys. Like, I love tonight's minute spread. It's 26, 24, 27, 25, 26, 28, 18. We're not having to stretch anybody out and like we did the first 2 games and play 36 and 37. I think that gives us the best chance to win the game and play at the pace we want to offensively and defensively. So if anything, it's been a great build for what I think is a stretch that we need in preparation for the Big 12.
And hopefully, Chris, an indication of maybe the kind of depth we could see for this team as the season rolls along.
Yeah, I think when all is said and done and they get rolling here, because you still it's one step forward, 2 steps back in some ways, because you get your guards back, and then it's like then you missed the biggest guy on your team in Federico in this last one versus Arkansas Pine Bluff. I don't think any of these injuries or anything like long term, or I think Grant even said after the win over Pine Bluff that they hope to have Federico back by Thursday, but you still just don't have all of the things at the same time. But I think when you do, and maybe that is Thursday night versus St. Joe's, you're going to go 9 deep. The next step would be Emily Yalaho and his ability to kind of add some minutes here and there. But these are valuable games, and yes, they're blowouts, but you're just trying to incorporate so many new things and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, who can we play together and all that, because it's going to be pretty quick here, and the experimentation time is going to be over. You're not going to be using a Bunsen burner and a little I don't know what we all used in chemistry class back when we were kind of dissecting a frog or whatever. But no, you think about it. You've got St. Joe's and either Syracuse or Texas to finish out this week. Then you're going to have largely a week off. You play the Friday after Thanksgiving, but then that next week, that's going to include DePaul and Texas A&M, and that's where the meat of your non-conference is all going to come from, and kind of really the next 3 weeks. But it's going to become the rest of this week, then a bit of a breather, and then that following week, and then you have a few more before it's time to buckle it up on New Year's Eve versus UCF. And then at that point, it just does not stop. But I do think that we're starting to see what it all could kind of look like when you've got little pieces. If you let this team get out and run, and this is a fast-paced game, you're in trouble. Now, I don't know if we have seen too much competition yet, but that's what these teams that come in here in the non-conference that are somewhat outmanned, if they let Texas Tech get up and down the floor, it's curtains.
Chemistry's been on my mind this week following that ball game. in large part because the 30 assists on 36 or 37 field goals was really standing out and kind of surprised me. Now it helps to have obviously your point guards back, especially a facilitator like Hawkins. But I'm just curious what you've seen so far, chemistry wise, as you're trying to build that early on, and really what you think in general, offensively or defensively, maybe where some of that comes together a little quicker, or maybe where sometimes it takes a little longer to come together as a team.
I think Hawkins is going to make all the difference in the world because he clearly understands the position that is a point guard and what that means. He's not without flaw. He's not the biggest guy. He's going to have to scrap and all that. I think that some teams are going to continue to bait him into shooting it, but he also, I said this on the telecast last night, you got to keep your head on a swivel, man. Whenever you're playing with him, because he's going to try to get you the basketball and he's going to do it behind the back. He's going to throw it up. He's going to make the simple pass. He's going to make the tricky one. But he just knows what he's trying to get done, and he sets guys up. He sees the game and understands where all the pieces are on the floor. And I'm watching him kind of look guys off. I think I said this on the telecast. I said last night, I meant the 2 nights ago. Can't get my days are all mixed up. But it's almost like he's looking off a safety. He's like looking off somebody in the post just to set up a pass for to one of his guys. And that's the kind of stuff that he's always had to play this position. And I just think that he's a pure point guard. He's not trying to do anything else. Whereas you've got other guys that can do it, but they also are good at other things. Chance McCaslin, I think is a great example. Darion Williams too. They're both so efficient. Though, hey, what does the team need? This is what I'll try to give them. But this kid is a pure point guard, and you can also see Christian Anderson. He's kind of always been like a guy that in high school they just throw it to him and it's like, hey, dude, go score, and he does it. But now they're going to ask him to kind of handle it and get other guys involved and not necessarily score because teams are going to take that away. And he's forced a few things, but this is a freshman guard that's going to learn. But a big picture, he's going to be a really good point guard. But Hawkins makes all the difference in the world. I love his defense too, and I also
I say on both ends of the floor, because his defensive intensity stood out to me, kind of in a surprising way.
He's somebody that's just a pain in the ass.
In all the good ways.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of nice. Not nice kids on this team, okay, and there's some guys that are just pretty even keel. I mean, you're just not going to get much emotional reaction from guys like Kerwin Walton, from Chance McMillan. Darion Williams has got a little something to him. Devin Cambridge can. JT Toppin seems pretty chill and even keel, but I like Hawkins' ability to kind of you can see he gets that part of it too, and he'll get in. I mean, keep in mind when Darion Williams got that technical against Wyoming, it was Elijah Hawkins that kind of stepped in there and started pushing and shoving. He got teed up too. I like that about him. I think that this team needs that, especially from certain guys. Everybody can't be that, okay, but you also can't have everybody that is like Kerwin Walton or JT Toppin either. That is just like a robotic in some ways. I think it's a nice mixture, but I really like what Hawkins has been able to give them from that. But he has given this team chemistry, and he'll continue because he started versus Pine Bluff, and I think you'll continue to see that. And then you can get into more of your normal flow of how you want to play this thing.
Leaving United Supermarkets Arena for the first time this year and going to an atypical environment. You'll be in Brooklyn. Are you going to Brooklyn or Stillwater or both?
I'm headed to Stilly. We've got the Joey McGuire radio show. We've got a trip to Stillwater. Can't be two places at once. As I've told you can't ride two horses with one ass. I've said right. Ass twice. Now that makes 3 times. Shame on me. This is supposed to be PG show here, and so I apologize if you're riding around with your kids going to school and everything like that. But yeah, so I'm footballing it this week. Okay. These should be the only basketball games that I miss.
Gotcha. Okay.
So unless you're playing a bowl game on like New Year's Eve or there's some conflict there with the bowl game, but yeah.
Yeah, man, looking forward to this thing in Brooklyn. Can't wait. And obviously we all know who we want to crack at on Friday, but we'll see if that comes to fruition. And got to get off to a good start regardless on Thursday with St. Joe's. So can't wait to see
Yeah,
how it unfolds.
and we'll talk about that maybe as the week goes along, maybe the day of the game, and kind of break them down just a little bit and kind of get into what Grant thinks about them. But these will be two very difficult games, and they'll be fairly rewarding for you. So
Yeah.
I like the next phase, and that's the way these non-conference schedules work. You have some games that you should do what you've done, and then you go test yourself around the holidays, and so here we are.
That's where we are. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So they're hitting the road as they head to Brooklyn, and obviously Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders hitting the road as well, headed to Stillwater. And I wanted to get to an opportunity that's been developing here as the season has gone along to do something for the first time under Joey McGuire, and that has to do with Texas Tech away from home. First, today's episode brought to you by Mint Mobile. And I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but it's got to be easy. I'm talking no hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I had to find out if it was really real. Turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process is spending time on hold waiting to break up with your old phone provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. There you'll see that right now all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with you, as well as all of your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for only $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for only $15 a month, just go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege and cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. And I wanted to get to an opportunity that's been developing here as the season has gone along to do something for the first time under Joey McGuire. And that has to do with Texas Tech away from home. Obviously, it had been a struggle, Chris, through the first couple of years with Coach McGuire and the Red Raiders when they were not in the friendly confines of Jones Stadium. I think you went 1-4, then 2-4, if I'm not mistaken, over the last 2 years on the road. And you have an opportunity to post a winning road record if you can get this one done in Stillwater against Oklahoma State. Obviously, has not all been perfect, and some of this has been painful when you've been away from your house. Trip to Fort Worth, not pleasant. Trip to Pullman, Washington, not all that pleasant. But progress is progress. And if I don't think you're going to get a plaque for it or anything like that, but you and I, like coming into these last few years, have kind of had a checklist of things you wanted to see, restored to the program. We've talked about winning at home, which you have done a pretty good job of. We've talked about getting better as the season goes on, finishing strong, which I think you have done a pretty good job of. But that winning on the road has been a real challenge. But you're in the midst of what could be your most successful road effort as far as the year goes of the Joey McGuire era. And I don't know if there's some change that resulted in that, or it's just kind of the way that the schedule broke down. But you got arguably your most impressive wins of the season, possibly on the road.
Yeah, we could probably debate it. I don't know as we finish this thing up. I don't know what's going to end up being your most impressive win. Is the one in Ames, or heck, man, maybe the one that over Arizona State in Lubbock, as the Sun Devils have just been red hot. But I think you have to look at progress in a variety of different ways. If you're simply judging it by what's crazy is you've lost the last 2 in a row at home. And that's what we did. If you could mix in some of this road record stuff and also win them all at home, it's like, okay, now you're, but Yeah, so we can't get everything. But winning in Tucson at the time when they were still kind of in it, and they were coming off of a huge win in Utah, and then going to win in Ames, and then playing so well at various times, and then having control of that game in Fort Worth and letting it slip away is something that we'll talk about a lot in the offseason. That was just very frustrating on what could have been. But now you're staring at a trip to Stillwater. And I know Vegas sure doesn't think this is going to be easy. I think this thing opened up around 6. I think now it's down to 2.5 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
So they are anticipating a bit of a ball game.
Yeah, tight one.
And you are, if you're into history, you are a whopping 1-9 in your last 10 in Stillwater. The irony is that the quarterback that won you that game is now starting for the other team.
That's right.
And he has a chance to, if you can go get this win, he has a chance to be on the field for a couple of wins for Texas Tech. He just won't have a Tech uniform on that particular day. But it hasn't been the easiest place for you to play. It just hasn't. Even as we documented earlier in the week, even when they weren't very good back in 2005, you still couldn't figure it out. You've played these guys well. You've gotten blown out some. You've lost some close ones up there. I mean, I just go back to 2 years ago in Barron's first game as a starter, and he played extremely well, but it just wasn't quite enough. And they were, I think, Oklahoma State at the time was 6th in the country. That's what's wild about this thing. These guys were top 10 when you were up there 2 years ago. Last year they played for the conference championship game, and the wheels have just come off. And yet it's a lot of the same cast of characters. That's the part that my brain is not, and maybe this is what Vegas is looking at going, they're not going to go winless. They're going to figure something out. I mean, I don't know what all goes into that. But this is not going to be just some walk in there and you roll. I don't think. Now, I'd love to see it, and I'd sign up for it right now if we're sitting there cracking jokes on the sideline and it's 49-0 in favor of the Red Raiders, and I would love nothing more to celebrate Thanksgiving week with a beatdown at the hands of the Pokes. But I just don't know if this is going to be easy per se, so we'll see.
Wouldn't expect anything easy the rest of the way out. I mean, there's always something interesting happening every week in the Big 12 Conference. Just hopefully not too interesting this time around for the good guys, because I think the interesting result would have to include a winless conference team doing something to get a win. So we don't want to see that actually play out that way. Let's just keep it nice, tidy, boring, straight down the middle. I was curious for a couple of thoughts before we get out of here, Chris, on this week's injury report. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle all the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And right now, new customers can bet only $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and a whole lot more, all in one place. So when you get a hunch, a gut instinct in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a gut feeling again, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I was curious for a couple of thoughts before we get out of here, Chris, on this week's injury report. Fairly light, some prominent names on it, however, like Jalen Conyers, Micah Hudson, still questionable. Javion Wilcox makes an appearance on the questionable portion of this list. We do see Bryce Ramirez listed as out against Oklahoma State, and Justin Horn on the out for the season list this time around. But really kind of curious to see maybe Micah Hudson make a return to the field. Do you think that we're jumping the gun a little bit this week? Is it more a West Virginia week combo, or how are you feeling about him?
So let's go through some of these, because there's a few names that aren't listed that have been, like Dre McCray was not listed.
Yeah.
I don't think anywhere on here, so I would expect him to play. I think as we have documented, Micah was on the sideline with a boot on. I gather it's a foot or ankle issue. We won't ultimately know until this week plays itself out and whether he was allowed to practice. Because if he can't practice a lot, then I don't think you'll see him. However, I would say that if you don't see him this week, I don't want to say guarantee, but I'm pretty darn sure that you will see him for West Virginia. Joey is just kind of like, yeah, hey, man, he's just, but I think they're trying to be smart with him and not, cause a bigger issue. But he's somebody that's right there. And again, we mentioned the punt return and the receiver stuff and everything with him. But I don't know specifically Kelby Velson, like what position it is, because Micah plays what Caleb Douglas plays at Z. We'll have to see where Kelby Velson is kind of. Is he playing the slot behind Josh Kelly? Is he behind Coy Aiken? I would expect to see Jordan Brown. I think it is interesting on the Jalen Conyers. I think his issue stems from, like, originally, it stems from that collision on the very first touchdown that he scored versus Colorado, that major collision. And he just, I could tell that he kind of came off, and it was a collision. And there was a bit of a fumble, but he'd crossed the goal line and established it, and all that was a touchdown. But we'll just kind of see what that looks like. And I hope he gets to finish this thing up the right way. But he's not listed as out, and we're going to go off of questionable being 80% or better. So I'm going to assume that he plays. If he doesn't, then I think you'll see Mason Tharp and John Carlos Miller is just your main two tight ends in this game versus Oklahoma State. And maybe you'll just run more 11 and 12 personnel and not show any 13 stuff or anything like that. But Jalen also takes away your ability to kind of run, some of the Wildcat, some of the stuff that you've kind of mixed in there, and 2-point conversions and red zone and short yardage and all that kind of stuff. So we'll keep an eye there. Justin Horn, unfortunately, when I was on the sideline versus that Colorado game, I don't know what happened there. It didn't look good at all. Not surprising to me that he's listed as out for the rest of the year. This is somebody that played on a lot of special teams. He's one of your very young linebackers. But there was a family member on the sideline kind of consoling Justin. He was on crutches, and it just – that's the part about the sport that just sucks, man. Injuries are just terrible. And it happens. It's just part of it. But, you don't want to speculate, but that obviously it seemed pretty severe with whatever it was. So who else we missed? Other one. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, have I missed seeing Wilcox yet this season, or is this like the closest that we've been to seeing him this season?
I think it's very strange because he's been on the out for this week most of the season, and now he moves to like a questionable.
Right.
But he's not. No, he hasn't played at all the whole year. And we were ready to call out the nickname Boom.
That's a good one. Don't let it go to waste.
Absolutely. So I don't know what the deal is there, but I guess I'd be surprised if he played in this one. But they've been pretty transparent with this injury list, and so if he's questionable, then maybe we see a little bit of a debut. This would be a bit tricky to do that, and I don't know in place of whom would he play. Maybe they work him into from a special team standpoint or something like that. I don't know. The other wasn't Ty Buchanan on the previous injury list before the Colorado game? Yeah, and I think he's kind of been. So he's not on there, I don't think, on this latest one. So wouldn't be surprised if it. My guess is going to be it's either him or Ponton at left tackle. So we'll kind of see there what that looks like. But relatively, as you should be after a bye week. Yeah, you've lost some guys for the year, but relatively healthy, I would say, and we'll just kind of see if it stays that way.
I thought it was kind of interesting that Joey McGuire mentioned on Monday that if, the injury report would have looked a lot different if they were playing another game directly after Colorado. So it sounds like the open week served a good purpose.
And I'll tell you, we didn't. He's on the injury report. I don't know what they'll do. Two things. One, Gino Garcia yesterday showed up on the Lou Groza award watch list. That's the Heisman for kickers. I think, what is he, 15 of 16 on the season?
Oh, yeah.
And Reese Burkhardt did show up on this deal. Reese Burkhardt, I mentioned this in the show we did after the game, but yeah, he was his arm in a sling on the sideline, and I think he hurt it on that tackle that he made in the open field. But you can theoretically still allow a kid to kick and kick off and all those things with a cast on. We saw that a couple years ago with our man Jonathan Garibay.
Yeah.
He was able to do that. So they were pretty. That game against Colorado was very physical. Yes, there was a lot of issues on the sideline that particular day, and I think it was probably good that you didn't have a game last weekend. But
yeah. All right, Chris. Well, good stuff as always, man. Appreciate the insights and perspective and the time as well. Enjoyed it, and we'll see you for the next one.
We love you all. Appreciate it. Keep hope alive, everybody.
And get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks especially to those everydayers out there always riding throughout the week with Locked On Texas Tech. Appreciate you. And a shout out to the Matador Mobsters as well. If you're interested in becoming one, hit the show notes. Check out the link for a free 14-day trial at your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for the time as always. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.